At my own birthday dinner, my daughter-in-law slid a brochure across the table. Assisted living, cheaper than keeping the house. My son nodded, already planning to sell my home. I stayed quiet, smiling like I agreed. But weeks later, when they came to take me away, their keys didn't work. The house was gone. I'm glad you're here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. In the photograph, I wore the smile of a woman who had lived a long life, a smile that looked practiced, polished, even joyful. No one could have guessed that only seconds before the flash, my daughter-in-law had leaned close and whispered words that cut deeper than any blade. "Smile," she murmured, her voice as sweet as honey but sharp as poison. "You're going to a nursing home." I smiled anyway, because that is what I had trained myself to do. I looked like the proud matriarch, standing between my son and his radiant wife in her coral dress. My own lips curled into a gentle curve, the picture of family bliss. But inside, something splintered. Those words didn't just land in my ears. They spread through my chest like ice water, numbing, suffocating, filling every breath with a chill I could not shake. Around me, the celebration continued as if nothing had happened. My son Marcus straightened his tie, preparing for another round of pictures. Plates clattered, glasses clinked, laughter rose and fell, but I heard everything as though it came from the bottom of a well. I moved through the motions, serving the food I had spent 2 full days preparing, nodding at conversations that skimmed past me, offering smiles that cost me pieces of my soul. Every glance at Lauren brought the same mocking curve of her lips, a smirk she disguised as politeness for the others. Her green eyes glimmered with calculation, with ownership. I knew what I had heard, and the way she watched me confirmed it. This was no joke. This was a plan. Marcus spoke to me less than he ever had, and when he did, his words carried the dull weight of obligation. The boy who once called me every day now treated me like a chore. I told myself for years that marriage changes things, that he was simply adjusting to a new life. But on that afternoon, the truth settled hard in my chest. I had been pushed to the sidelines of my own family. As I carried dishes back to the kitchen, my hands trembling from something far colder than age, fragments of their conversation drifted to me. Lauren's voice was coated with practiced concern. "She's getting more forgetful. Yesterday she asked me 3 times what day it was." A lie. I remembered every detail, every conversation, every barb disguised as kindness. My mind was sharp, sharper than they gave me credit for. But Marcus's reply was what made me grip the edge of the sink until my knuckles whitened. "Maybe we should start looking into options. She shouldn't be living alone in that big house." That house, my house, the place where Paul and I built a life, where Marcus grew from child to man, where laughter once filled every hallway. To them, it had become nothing more than an inconvenient piece of property, a burden. I stood there, rooted, listening to them speak of me as though I were already gone. Lauren had researched facilities. They had been discussing this for months. In their minds, my health was failing, my independence fading. In their minds, I was already halfway to the grave. Yet I played tennis twice a week. I volunteered at the library. I could recite every birthday, anniversary, and moment of importance in our family's history. My body may have grown older, but my mind was far from gone. Still, in Lauren's carefully crafted narrative, I was nothing more than a fragile old woman who needed to be hidden away. After they left, the silence of my house pressed against me. I sat with the Mother's Day card Marcus had given me, bright pink letters declaring to the best mom in the world, "Thank you for everything." I stared at the words until they blurred, until the irony stung like salt in an open wound. I walked the halls of my duplex that night, really seeing it for the first time in months. Gleaming hardwood floors I had polished with my own hands. The garden Paul and I had tended together. Photographs of Marcus as a boy, his smile once full of love, now nothing but a memory. A guest room I had hoped would one day hold grandchildren, still untouched, gathering dust because Lauren had decided children were not in her plans. The truth was merciless. Somewhere along the way, I had become invisible. But Lauren had made a mistake that would cost her dearly. She thought I was weak, that I was malleable, that I was too old to fight. She forgot who I was. She forgot I had raised Marcus alone after Paul's heart stopped beating in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. She forgot I had rebuilt a life from the ashes of grief. had endured storms that would have crushed weaker souls. That night, lying in bed and staring into the dark, I felt something stir in me, something fierce, something defiant. Their whispered plot was meant to break me, but instead it ignited me. If they wanted to play games with my life, I would not fold. I would remind them that I was not a burden. I was not disposable. If they believed they could control my future, they were about to discover just how wrong they were. The morning after that hollow Mother's Day, I rose with a clarity that felt sharper than anything I had known in years. My son had once handed me a spare key to his house, back when he still cared, when he still called me mom with warmth instead of duty. For emergencies, he had said. This felt like an emergency. I waited until I saw their car pull away for work, then drove 10 minutes through the quiet suburb. My hands trembled as I slid the key into the lock, not from fear of being caught, but from the dread of what I might uncover. The door opened into a world as sterile as a catalog spread, everything white, polished, soulless. No laughter, no photographs of family, no warmth. Even the few pictures of Marcus were formal portraits, stiff and cold, as if life had been ironed out of him. I started in his office. My heart lurched at the sight of brochures stacked neatly on the desk. Sunset Manor, Greenfield Assisted Living, Haven Pines. Notes scribbled in Lauren's perfect handwriting curled across the margins. Too expensive. No private rooms available. And on one, perfect. Basic care only. Basic care only. As if I were already gone. Just a body waiting to be warehoused until the end. Beneath the brochures were legal documents, guardianship rights, estate planning, papers drafted by some lawyer who surely thought he was helping a devoted son protect his mother. They weren't protecting me. They were plotting to strip me of everything I had built. I snapped photographs of each page with trembling hands. My phone became a weapon, capturing evidence that pierced what little love remained in my heart for the boy I had raised. In their bedroom, hidden in the drawer of a nightstand, I found the most damning record of all, a notebook, each page filled with Lauren's tidy script. At first glance, it looked like numbers, lists, household matters. But then the truth revealed itself. She had calculated my monthly expenses. She had jotted down the market value of my duplex. She had even charted how long I might live, based on average life expectancy for women with her health conditions. Her health conditions. I clenched the notebook so tightly my knuckles ached. I had no such ailments, only the ordinary aches of 68 years. Yet here, in black ink, she had already written me off. I turned another page and found her timeline. Phase 1, establish mental decline concerns. Phase 2, discuss safety issues with Marcus. Phase 3, present nursing home as the only option. Phase 4, sell property and liquidate assets. She had been orchestrating this for over a year. I sank into their pristine couch, the notebook heavy in my lap, and the rage came. Not sadness, not fear. Rage, clean, fierce, unflinching. They thought I was a fool, that I would quietly agree to vanish into a small room that smelled of disinfectant. They thought I would hand them the keys to my life. No. As I drove home, fury burned steady in my chest, but so did something else. A spark of resolve. I thought of Rosa, my caregiver, who came by 3 times a week. Rosa with her gentle voice and her homemade lumpia. Rosa who told me about her children in the Philippines. Rosa who treated me as if I still mattered. That afternoon, when she arrived with her dust cloth and her warm smile, I was ready. Rosa, I said, my voice steady though my heart thudded, may I ask you something personal? She paused, watching me carefully. Of course, Mrs. Miller. What is it? Are you happy working for me? I mean, truly happy or just polite? Her eyes softened. She set down the cloth and sat across from me. You are one of the kindest women I've ever worked for. You treat me with respect, like family, not like someone hired to clean. Why do you ask? I searched her face for deception and found none. Only warmth. Only truth. What would you say if I told you I might not be living here much longer? Her expression fell. Are you moving? Are you sick? My son thinks I should be in a nursing home, I whispered. Rose's gentle features hardened. That boy doesn't know what he has. You are strong, smart, more capable than people half your age. Why would he want to put you away? Because his wife thinks I'm a burden. Her disgust was palpable. That woman, she has ice in her veins. I see how she looks at you, like you are beneath her. The words struck something deep inside me. Validation. Someone else had seen what I had carried in silence. Rosa, I said, lowering my voice, can I trust you with something important? Her answer came without hesitation. Yes, always. Good, I whispered, because I'm going to need your help with something that might change both our lives. Her eyes widened, but she nodded firmly. Whatever you need, Mrs. Miller. That night I lay awake not in despair, but in calculation. My revenge would not be loud or reckless. It would be precise, devastating, and final. Marcus and Lauren believed they held all the pieces, that I was nothing but a pawn in their design. But I was not a pawn. I was the queen. And the board was mine. They thought I was too weak to fight back. They mistook my gray hair and quiet smile for surrender. They believed I would shuffle obediently into the cage they built for me, grateful for scraps of attention. But they had no idea who I truly was. I had weathered storms that would have broken others. I had buried a husband and raised a son alone. I had rebuilt my life brick by brick when the world tried to take it from me. And if Marcus and Lauren wanted a battle for my future, they had just chosen the wrong opponent. The plan began with Rosa. That Tuesday afternoon, as she dusted the shelves lined with photographs of Paul and Marcus, I asked her the question that would bind our fates together. Rosa, I said softly, if you could change your life completely, would you? She froze, cloth in hand, and then slowly turned to face me. Change my life, she repeated, her voice cautious. Yes, not just for yourself, for your children too. Her brown eyes flickered with longing. Then she shook her head, almost ashamed. That is only a dream. Here I clean houses, send money home. My children stay with my sister. It is not the life I wanted, but it is what I can give them. Tell me about them, I urged. Her face lit despite the sadness. Maria is 18. She wants to be a doctor. Carlos, 16. He is quiet but brilliant with computers. And little Anna, only 12. She is clever. Too clever sometimes. I haven't seen them in 3 years. Every day, my heart aches, but what choice do I have? Her words twisted inside me. She had sacrificed everything for her family, while mine had turned me into a ledger entry, a burden to erase. I reached across the table and took her rough hands in mine. Rosa, I said, you treat me with kindness when my own son does not. You see me as a person when they see me as an inconvenience. I need your help. And if you trust me, I promise I will change your life. She blinked, stunned. What do you mean? I mean that the people closest to me are plotting to erase me, and I intend to erase their plan instead. But I cannot do it alone. For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Then Rosa tightened her grip on my hands. I will help you, she whispered fiercely. Whatever you need. That night after she left, I spread papers across my dining room table, a yellow legal pad, a pen that scratched hard against the page. I began to sketch my strategy, line by line, as if I were building a fortress. This would not be reckless revenge born of rage. It would be deliberate, airtight, and unbreakable. I thought of Lauren's smug smirk, the way she circled basic care only on those brochures, reducing my life to the cheapest option. I thought of Marcus, nodding along as though my worth could be measured in convenience. The betrayal seared me, but it also clarified me. They underestimated me. They forgot whose blood ran in Marcus's veins. The following morning, I walked into the office of Harold Brennan, the lawyer who had guided me through Paul's estate years ago. The leather chair groaned as I sat down, steadying myself for what I was about to ask. Janine, Harold said warmly, what brings you here? I want to make changes, I told him. To my will, to my property, to everything. His brows rose. That's a serious step. May I ask why? So I told him. I told him about the whisper in my ear on Mother's Day, about the documents I had found, about the calculated plan to have me declared incompetent and locked away. As the words spilled out, Harold's expression grew darker, heavier. I never would have expected this from Marcus, he said quietly. Neither did I admitted. But now I need to protect myself. And more than that, I want to do something meaningful with what I have left. Something good. What are you thinking? I lifted my chin. I want to deed my duplex to Rosa. Not later. Now, while I'm alive to see it. Harold leaned back, studying me. That is a substantial gift. Are you certain? More certain than I've been about anything in years, I said. My son sees me as a burden and this house as a prize to claim. I'd rather give it to someone who will fill it with love and build a better future. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Harold nodded. Very well. We'll need documentation, medical evaluations, psychological assessments, proof that you are of sound mind. If Marcus tries to contest, we'll make sure he fails. Whatever it takes, I told him. And for the first time in years, I felt light, as though I had stepped out from under a shadow. When I returned home, Rosa was waiting with her usual quiet smile. But when I told her what I intended, her composure shattered. She wept, shaking her head, insisting it was too much. I cupped her hands in mine. You've given me dignity when my own family stripped it away, I said. You've shown me kindness when they showed me cruelty. Let me give you this. Her tears fell freely, but she nodded, trembling. Then I will not let you down. And in that moment, I knew. The game had shifted. I was no longer the prey. I was the hunter. So if you are listening now, don't look away. This story is only beginning, and you'll want to see how far a mother can go when the people she loves betray her. Stay with me, share this story, and let others know. Sometimes the strongest revenge is simply taking back your life. The days that followed moved with a strange mixture of heaviness and anticipation. For years, I'd allowed Marcus and Lauren to dictate the tone of our relationship, to silence me with guilt or obligation. But now, every step I took was mine alone, deliberate, decisive. Harold Brennan became my ally in ways I hadn't realized I would need. Sitting across from him in his oak-paneled office, I explained once again what I intended. I want the deed transferred to Rosa immediately, I told him, my voice unwavering. He studied me, his fingers steepled, eyes sharp behind his glasses. Janine, you understand this will devastate Marcus. He believes, I know what he believes, I interrupted, my tone firm. He believes my life is already his to manage. He believes my home is his inheritance. But I am not dead, Harold, and I refuse to let him bury me before my time. For a long moment, Harold said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. We'll execute a quitclaim deed, but to protect you from challenge, I recommend thorough documentation, medical evaluation, psychological assessment. We need proof you are entirely of sound mind. Arrange it, I said, whatever it takes. The tests were almost amusing. Doctors asked me to recall words, solve puzzles, recount dates. I recited entire passages of Shakespeare for one startled physician, listed every U.S. president in order for another. I walked out of each office with papers that certified what I already knew. I was sharper than most half my age. When the documents were finally prepared, I felt a freedom I hadn't known in years. My duplex, the house where I had poured decades of love and labor, would no longer hang over my head like a prize waiting to be stolen. It would belong to someone who would honor it, someone who would fill it with the kind of laughter and care that had vanished from my life the moment Lauren joined it. The day I told Rosa, her hands stilled on the basket of laundry she had been folding. She looked at me as if I had spoken a foreign language. I don't understand, she whispered. I want you to have the duplex, I repeated. Both sides. You can live in one, rent the other, bring your children here. It's time this house became a home again. Her eyes filled instantly. No, Mrs. Miller, I can't accept something so big. This is your life, your home. This house, I said gently, has already been stripped of meaning by the people who should have cherished it most. Marcus wants to sell it to fund his life. Lauren has reduced me to numbers in a notebook. They would have had me locked away to make it easier. I would rather give it to someone who understands what sacrifice means, who knows the value of family. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she shook her head, overwhelmed. It's too much. You don't know how much this would change everything for me, For Maria, for Carlos, for Anna. I can't. I took her hands, felt the roughness of her palms, the years of hard labor etched into her skin. Rosa, you already have given me something priceless. You've given me dignity when my own blood tried to strip it away. You've listened to me when no one else did. You've made me feel like I still matter. That is worth more than any inheritance. Well, she was crying openly now. Your son will be furious. I expect nothing less, I said with a small smile. But that is my burden to carry, not yours. For the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine smile rise to my face. It wasn't the painted smile I wore for photographs or family dinners. It was real, rooted in certainty. Over the next weeks, Harold and I worked quietly, threading every needle, sealing every loophole. Meanwhile, I continued to play the role my son and his wife expected. When Marcus came by with false concern, "Mom, you left the stove on again yesterday?" I lowered my eyes and nodded apologetically, even though I had been nowhere near the stove that day. When Lauren suggested lovely facilities where I could have people around all the time, I let my voice tremble as I answered, "Oh dear, perhaps you're right. Maybe I should see one." Their relief was almost laughable. They thought their plan was working, that the trap was closing around me. But while they set their snare, I was constructing my own, and mine was ironclad. The afternoon Harold called to confirm that the deed had been filed. I sat at my kitchen table with the papers in my hands. My name was no longer the owner listed on the property. Instead, it was Rosa's. The ink was permanent, the decision irrevocable. When Rosa came that evening, I placed the papers gently in her trembling hands. "It's done," I said. "This is your home now." She held the documents as if they might vanish, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already have," I told her softly, "by reminding me that kindness still exists." For the first time in years, the house felt alive again, not because anything had changed within its walls, but because its future had shifted. It was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. It was hope. It was freedom. It was legacy. And with that single act, I knew. Marcus and Lauren had already lost, even if they didn't know it yet. Sometimes the most powerful way to win is to let your enemy believe they're already victorious. That was the mask I chose to wear. Frail, confused, forgetful. Behind it, I sharpened every move, waiting for the moment to turn their plan into their downfall. Marcus began stopping by more often, his visits wrapped in false concern. One afternoon, he sank into my couch, spreading out like he already owned it. "Mom, you left the stove on again yesterday," he said. His tone carried patience, but his eyes flickered with judgment. I had been out playing tennis at the very hour he claimed. Still, I dropped my gaze, folded my hands, and whispered, "Oh dear, did I? I've been so scattered lately." Lauren, perched beside him, exchanged a triumphant glance with her husband. She leaned forward, her voice soft and honeyed. "It happens, Janine. Don't feel embarrassed. It's just part of getting older." Every word tasted like poison, but I forced a nod. "I suppose you're right." "We've been thinking," Marcus continued, "maybe it would be good for you to have someone around more often, for safety." "You mean Rosa?" I asked, letting my brow crease in confusion. "She's fine," Lauren said quickly, "but she's only here 3 days a week. What if something happened on the others?" Her tone dripped with manufactured compassion. "There are facilities where you'd never be alone. They're lovely places with activities, medical care, friends your age." "Facilities?" I whispered, letting my voice quiver. "Like a nursing home?" Marcus shook his head too quickly. "Not a nursing home, Mom. Assisted living. You'd have your own apartment, your independence. It's nice." I thought of the brochures I'd found, the cruel notes scribbled in Lauren's handwriting. Basic care only. They had no idea I already knew every detail of their plan. Still, I let my face soften. Maybe I could visit one just to see. Their relief was almost comical. Marcus's shoulders sagged and Lauren's lips curved into a pleased smile. They thought they had won. The following Saturday, Marcus called. "They have an opening for a tour tomorrow morning. We'll pick you up at 10. "Of course," I said gently, layering resignation into every syllable. "That sounds fine." The next morning arrived gray and damp, the air heavy with drizzle. Marcus and Lauren pulled into my driveway, their cheerfulness forced, their excitement barely contained. "You're going to love this place, Mom," Marcus promised as he guided me into the car. I smiled faintly, gazing out the window. If only he knew what I was really planning. Sunset Manor looked every bit the warehouse I had expected. A squat concrete building surrounded by cracked asphalt and a few sad shrubs struggling to survive. The lobby reeked of disinfectant, the kind of sterile air that seeped into your skin and stole your spirit. A young woman named Brittany greeted us, her voice overly bright, pitched for toddlers or the infirm. She led us through the dining hall where rows of residents sat in silence, staring at meals they had no appetite for. She showed us the recreation room, where a television blared while two people dozed in wheelchairs. And finally, she opened the door to a sample room. It was small, suffocating. A bed, a dresser, a single chair. The lone window offered a view of the parking lot. This was not a home. This was a place where people waited to die. Brittany beamed as if unveiling paradise. The monthly fee covers meals, laundry, activities, basic medical care. It's really a bargain. A bargain. That's what my life had been reduced to. I turned slowly, letting my gaze linger on the dull beige walls, the single fluorescent light humming above. Marcus slid his arm around my shoulders in a gesture that might have looked tender to an outsider. To me, it was a cage. "What do you think, Mom?" he asked, his voice eager, almost pleading. I smiled up at him, calm and steady. "It's very nice," I said. "When could I move in?" The relief on their faces nearly broke me into laughter. They thought the battle was finished, that they had bent me to their will. They had no idea that with every nod, with every feigned weakness, I was pulling the strings tighter around them. Because while they were congratulating themselves, the deed had already been filed. The house no longer belonged to me. It belonged to Rosa. Their victory was an illusion, and I intended to let them live in it until the truth shattered everything they thought they controlled. That night, as I settled into bed, I felt the storm rising inside me. Not despair, but anticipation. Their trap was closing, yes, but it wasn't around me. It was around them. So stay with me, because the moment of revelation is coming, and when it arrives, you will not want to miss a single detail. Share this story. Keep listening, because the next move will change everything. Monday morning broke with sharp sunlight flooding through my curtains, a contrast to the storm I carried inside. I rose early, dressed carefully in my navy suit, the same one I had worn to Paul's funeral, the same one I had chosen for moments that demanded gravity and strength. Today demanded both. At exactly 9, I dialed Marcus. My voice was calm, measured. "I need you and Lauren to come over this morning. There's something important we need to discuss about my living situation." His eagerness crackled through the phone. "Of course, Mom. We'll be right there." Half an hour later, they arrived, faces glowing with smug anticipation. Lauren carried a manila folder tucked beneath her arm, no doubt brimming with forms from Sunset Manor. Marcus walked in with the swagger of a man convinced the world had already bent to his will. "Sit down," I said evenly, motioning toward the living room. I claimed my usual chair. Paul used to tease me about how possessive I was of it. That memory gave me strength. Marcus and Lauren sat together on the couch, leaning forward as though they were about to receive their prize. "I've been thinking about our visit on Saturday," I began, "and about what you both said regarding my future." Marcus smiled, warmth flickering in his voice for the first time in years. "We're so glad that you're being reasonable about this, Mom." Lauren opened her folder with a practiced flourish. "We brought some preliminary paperwork. Nothing too major, just forms to get the process started." I let them bask for a moment in their illusion of victory. Then I spoke, my voice steady as iron. "Before we talk about paperwork, I should tell you the decision I've made." Marcus's smile widened. "Of course. What is it?" I drew a breath, savoring the moment. "I've deeded my duplex to Rosa." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush stone. The ticking of the grandfather clock filled the room, marking each second of their stunned disbelief. "I'm sorry," Lauren said finally, her voice tight. "Could you repeat that?" "I've given my house to Rosa de la Cruz, both sides of the duplex. The papers were filed last Friday." Marcus went pale. Mom, that's not funny. I'm not joking. I reached into my purse and laid a copy of the filed deed on the coffee table between us. She is the legal owner now. Lauren snatched the papers, her eyes devouring every line, her cheeks flushed scarlet. This can't be legitimate. She's not even... She's a permanent resident, I cut in. Perfectly legal. Harold Brennan handled every detail. Everything is above board. Marcus stared at the deed as if it might burst into flames in his hands. Mom, you can't do this. This house was supposed to be... Yes, I know, I said coldly. It was supposed to be the prize you sold once you locked me away. I know about Sunset Manor. I know about the calculations in Lauren's notebook. I know about the lawyer you consulted for guardianship. Color drained from Lauren's face. How did you... You left me a key to your house, Marcus, remember? I used it. Silence thickened as my words cut through the air. I saw everything. The brochures, the notes about basic care only, the timeline to establish my mental decline, the projections of how long I might live. Every page of it. Marcus looked as though he might collapse. Mom, you don't understand. We were just trying to plan ahead, to make sure you were taken care of. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Taken care of? You mean dumped in the cheapest warehouse you could find so you could pocket the money from selling my home? That isn't care. That's disposal. Lauren's mask cracked, fury spilling through. You can't just give away property worth $500,000 to a cleaning woman. This is insane. Rosa isn't just a cleaning woman, I snapped. She is a registered nurse who has shown me more kindness in 2 years than either of you have in 3. She has worked herself raw for her children, sacrificed everything, and still treated me with dignity when my own family treated me like a burden. This is ridiculous, Lauren spat. We'll contest this. We'll have you declared incompetent. No judge will believe a sane woman would throw away her entire inheritance on a stranger. Go ahead, I said coolly. Harold insisted on thorough medical and psychological evaluations before filing the papers. 3 different doctors declared me of sound mind, explained to a judge why a woman who drives, plays tennis twice a week and manages her finances can't decide what to do with her property. Marcus pressed his head into his hands. Please, Mom. Maybe Rosa would be willing to sell the house back. Why would she? I cut in. So you can sell it and send me to Sunset Manor? No, that future is gone. Then where will you live? Lauren demanded. Rosa offered me the master suite. She wants me here. Imagine that. Someone actually wants to care for me instead of throwing me away. The defeat in their faces brought no joy, only sadness for what could have been. You've destroyed everything, Lauren whispered. No, I said firmly. You destroyed everything when you decided I was worth more dead than alive. You just didn't expect me to fight back. They left a short while later, Lauren clutching her useless folder, Marcus looking like he had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. When the door closed behind them, silence settled over the house. Not the lonely silence I had endured for years, but the triumphant quiet of a woman who had stood her ground. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Blood isn't always family. Sometimes the people who carry your name and wound you deeper than any stranger, while those who arrive in your life by chance end up healing every scar. That truth revealed itself in the weeks that followed, as laughter returned to my house in voices that were never meant to be mine, but became mine anyway. 2 months after the deed was signed, Rosa's children stepped onto American soil. I was there at the airport, my heart pounding as if they were my own. Maria, tall and serious at 18, with the same determined eyes as her mother. Carlos, 16, quiet but sharp, his mind already whirring with dreams of engineering. And little Anna, 12 going on 30, with a mischievous smile that lit her face and eyes filled with curiosity. When they first entered the duplex, their suitcases clutched like shields, Anna darted straight toward me. She wrapped her arms around my waist and looked up with a smile that seemed too wide for her small face. Lola Janine, right, she said, using the Filipino word for grandmother Rosa had taught her. Mama says you gave us this house. Is that true? I knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. It's true, sweetheart. But why? She asked softly. We're not your real family. Her words pierced me, but not with pain, with recognition. I saw in her the same question I had asked myself so many nights when Marcus pulled away, when Lauren's eyes dismissed me. Why am I not enough for them? I cupped Anna's chin and lifted her gaze. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who loves you, who makes space for you in their heart. By that measure, you are more my family than some who share my DNA. She studied me with the seriousness of a child who had grown up too quickly. Then she whispered, "Then can I call you Lola for real?" Tears burned my eyes. I would be honored. From that moment, the house transformed. No longer hollow, no longer heavy with silence. Maria's laughter drifted from the kitchen as she taught herself American recipes with the determination of someone who had learned to survive by adapting. Carlos filled the rooms with the quiet hum of his computer, his ideas spilling into sketches and circuits. Anna's laughter, oh, Anna's laughter, danced against the walls, reviving corners that had been cold for years. And Rosa, with her steady presence, breathed life into every room. She began the process of regaining her nursing certification, her confidence rising like a tide. The duplex, once a place I feared would be stolen, had become something entirely new. A sanctuary, a beginning. Marcus drove by more than once. I saw his car linger at the curb, headlights cutting across the windows, his face shadowed behind the glass. He never stopped, never knocked. Perhaps he couldn't bear to see what the house had become without him, a place alive with love, warmth, and belonging. I felt a flicker of sadness for what could have been if he had chosen differently, but only a flicker, because what I had now was more powerful than regret. I had chosen family, and family had chosen me back. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the garden Paul had planted decades ago, Rosa joined me on the porch. The children were inside, voices weaving together in a chorus of joy. She handed me a cup of jasmine tea, her smile quiet, full of gratitude. "They love you, you know," she said. I sipped, the steam curling into the cool air. "And I love them." Her eyes shimmered. "You gave them a future, Janine. You gave me a future. I don't know how to repay you." "You already have," I said softly, "by filling this house with life again, by reminding me that family can be chosen." As twilight deepened, I listened to the sound of plates clinking, Carlos reading aloud from a recipe, Maria correcting him with mock sternness, Anna's laughter spilling out like sunlight. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. Marcus and Lauren had tried to erase me. Instead, they had pushed me toward a new life, one where I was valued, cherished, and loved. So if you're hearing this now, let it be a reminder. Sometimes the people who share your blood will betray you, but that doesn't mean you are alone. There are others waiting to call you family, if you dare to open your heart. Stay with me, because this story is far from finished. What comes next will show just how much brighter life can become when you finally step out of the shadows. The duplex no longer felt like a relic of the past. Each day it grew warmer, brighter, as though the walls themselves had absorbed the energy of Rosa and her children. The air carried the sense of garlic and simmering broth, the sound of music drifting from Maria's room, the shuffle of Carlos's papers spread across the dining table. Even the garden, once wilted from neglect, bloomed again under Rosa's careful hands and Anna's laughter as she darted between the rose bushes. I found myself waking each morning not to silence, but to life. Anna's voice called for her mother. Maria hummed while making coffee. Carlos muttered about circuits and codes. The quiet routine I had once dreaded was replaced with a rhythm that reminded me what a home was supposed to feel like. Rosa was blossoming too. She spoke of her classes with excitement, working steadily toward regaining her nursing license. There was a fire in her now, a confidence that hadn't been there before. Owning this house, building this life, had given her the stability she needed to reclaim the dreams she once thought impossible. One evening, she joined me at the kitchen table while Maria and Carlos studied nearby, and Anna sprawled on the rug with crayons. Rosa folded her hands, her eyes filled with determination. "I want to set up a college fund for you," she said. I laughed, surprised. "A college fund? For me?" "Yes." Her voice held no hesitation. You always talk about how you wished you'd studied photography or taken an art class. You've given me everything, Janine. Let me give something back to you. I stared at her, stunned. At 68, I had never once imagined the possibility of starting anew. My years had always been given away to others, first to Paul, then to Marcus, then to the endless sacrifices of motherhood. And yet, here was Rosa offering me not just a home, but a future. Tears stung my eyes as I whispered, I don't even know what to say. You don't need to say anything, she replied softly. Just promise me you'll live the years you have left for yourself. The words lodged deep in me. For so long, my existence had been measured by what I could give, by how useful I was to others. But Rosa's gift was different. She wasn't asking for anything back, only that I allow myself to finally be free. Life in the duplex grew richer with each passing week. Maria was accepted into a pre-med program at the community college, her excitement spilling over every time she shared what she learned. Carlos threw himself into engineering projects, soldering bits of wire in the garage until sparks flew. Anna remained the brightest light of all, tugging at my hand to show me drawings, to help her with homework, or simply to sit and listen as she told me stories about her new school friends. Evenings became my favorite time. We gathered around the dinner table, candles glowing, food spread across dishes like a feast. There was noise, laughter, the playful bickering of siblings who had finally been reunited. Rosa would glance at me across the table, her eyes shining with gratitude. I always met her gaze with the same silent message. This is what family looks like. Sometimes when I walked past the front window at dusk, I saw Marcus's car idling across the street. He never came inside. He only watched. The sight no longer tore at me the way it once would have. Instead, it filled me with a quiet sorrow laced with finality. He had made his choice, and I had made mine. One afternoon, I found myself in the garden, pruning roses Paul had planted decades ago. Anna skipped out to join me, chattering about her school day. She stopped suddenly, watching me clip a spent bloom. Lola, she said, her voice thoughtful, are you happy now? I looked at her, this child who had been brave enough to live without her mother for years, and now stood in the garden of a home she could finally call hers. Yes, sweetheart, I answered honestly. For the first time in a very long time, I am truly happy. She smiled, her eyes wide and knowing. Good, because we love you, and we don't want you to ever be sad again. Her words sank into me like sunlight. I drew her into my arms, holding her tightly, breathing in the scent of crayons and childhood that clung to her hair. I realized then that healing didn't come from reclaiming what was lost. It came from choosing what came next. And in choosing Rosa and her children, I had chosen love over blood, joy over bitterness, life over loneliness. The house no longer echoed with the footsteps of disappointment. It rang with new beginnings, with laughter, with dreams, and with every passing day, I felt myself becoming not smaller, not diminished, but renewed. The evening meal had become a ritual, a heartbeat that steadied the entire house. That night, the kitchen glowed with golden light while voices overlapped in a chorus of warmth. Maria stood at the stove, carefully seasoning the pot roast. Carlos hunched over his phone, reading each step of the recipe as if it were a sacred text. Anna stood on a stool, dusted in flour, rolling out dough for biscuits with fierce determination. I sat at the breakfast nook, watching them with a fullness in my chest I could not contain. The house pulsed with life again. Clattering paws, bursts of laughter, Rosa humming softly as she moved between her children. It was chaos, yes, but it was joyful chaos, the kind that stitched itself into memory. When we finally sat down to eat, candles flickered across the table, casting soft shadows on their eager faces. The food tasted like love itself. The biscuits were fluffy and golden, better than any bakeries. The roast melted on my tongue, seasoned not just with spices, but with care. Maria spoke animatedly about her first acceptance letter from the pre-med program, her eyes glowing with the determination of someone who had finally been given the chance to chase her dream. Carlos leaned in to describe a project he was building, his words tumbling out faster than his thoughts. Anna interrupted with bold declarations that her biscuits would win awards one day, her grin wide and certain. I listened, drinking it all in, each word wrapping around me like a quilt. This, this was what I had longed for in silence while my own son had grown colder and more distant. Not money, not possessions, not control, just love, just family. After dinner, Rosa helped me upstairs as she often did, though I didn't need the assistance. It had become our ritual, a chance to pause in the quiet before the night settled. At the top of the stairs, she stopped, her expression earnest. "Janine Chee," she said gently, "I need to tell you something." I turned, curious. "What is it?" "I've been saving money from the rental income. I want to set up a college fund for you." The words startled me. "For me?" She nodded firmly. "You've always spoken about wanting to learn photography, maybe take some art classes. You've spent your life giving everything to everyone else. Now it's time to do something for yourself." My breath caught, my throat tightening. At 68, I had thought my days of dreaming were behind me. I had accepted that my role was caretaker, provider, survivor. But in her words, I heard a different truth, that it wasn't too late to begin again. Tears welled as I whispered, "Thank you." And she understood that I wasn't just thanking her for the college fund. I was thanking her for giving me back myself. That night I lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house below, the clinking of dishes, the murmur of children preparing for tomorrow, Rosa's soft humming drifting up the stairs. My heart swelled with a peace so deep it startled me. Marcus and Lauren had tried to write me out of my own life, to erase me as though I were an inconvenient footnote, but instead, their cruelty had pushed me towards something greater, toward a family that chose me, cherished me, and saw me not as a burden, but as a blessing. Sometimes life doesn't give us the family we expect. Sometimes it asks us to be brave enough to choose differently. And sometimes, against all odds, the family we choose proves stronger, kinder, and more enduring than the one we were born into. So if you are listening to my story now, carry this truth with you. You are not defined by those who betray you. You are defined by the love you give and the love you allow yourself to receive. Do not let anyone convince you that you are disposable. You are worthy of joy, worthy of respect, worthy of building a life that feels like home. If my story has reached you, let it remind you to fight for your dignity, to guard your heart fiercely, and to never let anyone else decide your worth. And if this journey has touched you, share it, let others hear it, and keep following. Because sometimes the endings we create ourselves are far brighter than the ones others tried to force upon us.